A day, Iran and Israel stand on opposite ends of the Middle East's most dangerous rivalry. Their war is fought not just with missiles, but with spies, assassinations, proxies, and propaganda. But it wasn't always this way. There was a time when Iranian generals toasted Israeli diplomats in Tehran, when Israeli engineers helped build Iran's military, when Mossad and Sabak, two secret police agencies, shared intelligence. So what changed? Why did two nations that once stood as strategic allies become bitter enemies? This is the untold story of how friendship turned into fire. This is the secret history of Iran and Israel. In the years following World War II, the Middle East was reshaping. Israel declared its independence in 1948. Most Arab states rejected its existence. War followed, but not all countries joined the chorus of condemnation. Iran, under Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, quietly took a different path. Although Iran was a Muslim-majority country and publicly aligned with the Arab League's sentiments, behind closed doors, the Shah saw Israel not as an enemy, but as a potential ally. Both countries were surrounded by hostile neighbors. Both feared the spread of Soviet influence, and both needed friends. In the 1950s and 60s, that shared isolation brought them closer together. By the 1960s, the cooperation was no longer secret. Israel sent military advisors to train Iranian forces. Iranian oil flowed into Israeli ports, and Israeli intelligence agents worked closely with Sabak, Iran's feared internal security agency. It wasn't just about politics. Israel helped Iran with irrigation, infrastructure, and even agriculture. Israeli engineers helped develop Iran's farming technologies in rural provinces. This partnership culminated in the Periphery Doctrine. Israel, isolated from its Arab neighbors, sought to build ties with non-Arab regional powers like Iran, Turkey, and Ethiopia. And Iran was central to that plan. For nearly 2 decades it worked. Iran did not officially recognize Israel, but embassies operated under aliases. Flights connected Tehran and Tel Aviv. The Shah even sent his top generals to Israeli military academies. Behind the scenes, they were allies. But in 1979, it all came crashing down. Iran was in chaos. The Shah's regime, increasingly authoritarian and out of touch, was swept away by a tidal wave of revolution. Leading that revolution was a cleric in exile, Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. And with him came a new ideology, one that saw Israel not as a friend, but as a sworn enemy. The Islamic Republic of Iran emerged with a new set of priorities. It would be anti-Western, anti-imperialist, and explicitly anti-Zionist. Khomeini called Israel the Little Satan, a puppet of the Great Satan, the United States. Diplomatic ties were severed. The Israeli mission in Tehran was stormed and handed over to the Palestine Liberation Organization. Iranian TV showed Israeli flags being burned in the streets. In the span of decades of quiet alliance turned into open hostility. The 1980s were a confusing time. Despite their new enmity, Iran and Israel found themselves on strange footing. In 1980, Iraq invaded Iran, starting the brutal 8-year Iran-Iraq War. Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein, once Israel's enemy, was now Tehran's worst nightmare. And in a twist of Cold War politics, Israel began secretly supplying Iran with weapons. Yes, despite their public hatred, the two enemies cooperated in secret once more. It was part of the now infamous Iran-Contra affair, a US-backed operation that saw Israeli arms sold to Iran in exchange for hostages, with profits funneled to anti-communist rebels in Central America. It was betrayal cloaked in necessity. But after the war ended, so did the last remnants of that uneasy back channel. From the 1990s onward, the Israel-Iran conflict evolved into a shadow war. Iran no longer fought Israel directly. Instead, it funded and armed groups that did. Hezbollah in Lebanon became Iran's most powerful proxy. Founded after Israel's invasion of Lebanon in 1982, Hezbollah received weapons, training, and funding from Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps. Iran also supported Hamas and Islamic Jihad in the Palestinian territories, groups committed to Israel's destruction. For its part, Israel began targeting Iranian operatives and weapons convoys in Syria, Lebanon, and even further afield. This wasn't a conventional war, it was a chess match with real blood. In 2006, Israel and Hezbollah went to war. Over 1,000 people died. The region was left in ruins, and Iran's influence grew. Then came the nuclear question. Iran's nuclear program, which began with Israeli help in the 1960s, now terrified Tel Aviv. By the early 2000s, intelligence reports suggested Iran was enriching uranium at levels that could lead to weaponization. Israel vowed never to let Iran go nuclear, and it acted. In 2010, a computer worm, Stuxnet, crippled Iran's centrifuges. It was the world's first known cyber weapon, believed to be a joint Israeli-American operation. Iran responded with cyber attacks of its own, targeting Israeli infrastructure. Then came a wave of assassinations. Between 2010 and 2012, several Iranian nuclear scientists were killed in mysterious bombings and shootings. Israel never confirmed involvement, but the message was clear: we will not allow you to build a bomb. In 2020, Israel signed peace agreements with several Arab nations, the Abraham Accords. The UAE, Bahrain, Morocco, and Sudan normalized ties with Israel, breaking a decades-old Arab taboo. For Iran, this was a nightmare. It feared a united front of Israel and Sunni Arab states, especially Saudi Arabia. Tehran ramped up its rhetoric and its regional influence. It doubled down on support for proxies in Yemen, Iraq, and Gaza. It warned that Israel would pay a heavy price for its regional outreach. The conflict remained in the shadows, but its reach was widening. So here we are, two nations, once partners, now locked in a bitter multi-front Cold War. A conflict that stretches across borders, across cyberspace, across ideologies. Iran and Israel are not just fighting over land or religion. They're fighting over identity, survival, and influence in the world's most volatile region. And while peace may seem impossible today, history reminds us there was a time when these nations stood side by side. Perhaps one day they may again. Until then, the shadow war rages on, hidden in plain sight. If you found this story compelling, like, share, and subscribe to Echoes of History for more true stories from the past that still shape our world today.